Welcome back to Hope is Kindled, where stories, philosophy, memory, and the human heart come together to remind us that even when the world feels diminished, something luminous still remains. Tonight's episode began with a song. Not the version by America from 1982, though I love that one forever. A cover. Softer, more fragile, and slightly more metal. When I heard the opening line earlier today, which reads,
"When the last eagle flies over the last crumbling mountain, and the last lion roars at the last dusty fountain,"
it hit me like a thunderbolt. The book, the film, the song, they are not just fantasy. They are a prayer that beauty has not vanished, a prayer that goodness is not extinct, a prayer that it is not too late. In case you have not already gathered, tonight we turn to Peter S. Beagle's The Last Unicorn. On its surface, The Last Unicorn appears simple. A unicorn hears that she may be the last of her kind. She leaves the safety of her forest to discover what happened to the others. She encounters a failed magician, Schmendrick, a fierce, breathing woman, Molly Grew, and King Haggard, who has driven all the unicorns into the sea using the Red Bull. But this is not a quest in the heroic sense. This is a story about what happens when the world forgets how to see beauty. It's scary because when the world stops seeing beauty, it doesn't just lose decoration, it loses orientation. Beauty isn't superficial. It's not a luxury. It's not icing on the cake of civilization. Beauty is one of the primary ways we recognize meaning. When we see something as beautiful, we are acknowledging that it matters, that it has value beyond utility, that it deserves care. So when it feels like the world cannot see beauty anymore, what we're really afraid of is something deeper. What if nothing is sacred? What if kindness is naive? What if wonder is childish? What if everything is reduced to efficiency, profit, and noise? In The Last Unicorn, the terror isn't that the unicorn is dying. Human perception is. It's that people have forgotten how to recognize her. Most humans in the book walk past her and see only a white horse. The loss is not biological, it's perceptual. That's what makes it frightening. If beauty still exists but no one can see it, then the problem is not extinction. It's blindness. And blindness spreads quietly. When the world stops seeing beauty, we stop protecting what is fragile. We stop nurturing what is slow. We stop valuing what doesn't shout. We begin measuring everything by usefulness. King Haggard cannot feel joy unless he imprisons it. That is what happens when perception atrophies. Beauty becomes something to consume or capture, not something to live alongside. And that's terrifying because it suggests a world where generosity is mocked, depth is dismissed, tenderness is seen as weakness, and imagination is treated as foolishness. It feels like the Red Bull running through the land, driving wonder into the sea. That is how I was feeling. But here's the counterpoint, and this is crucial. The fact that any of us, is frightened by that possibility proves something enormous. It proves we are not blind. We are afraid of losing beauty because we still see it. We can still appreciate it. People who truly cannot see beauty don't mourn its disappearance. They don't cry at songs. They don't feel thunderbolts. Psychologically, this story is devastating and precise. The unicorn begins untouched by time. She is immortal, serene, certain. But once she enters the human world, she learns something terrifying. Not everyone can see her. Beauty, Beagle suggests, is not self-evident. It requires openness. This aligns deeply with what we've discussed before. In the never-ending story, The nothing spreads when imagination collapses. In A Wrinkle in Time, it erases individuality in the name of comfort. In 1984, language shrinks until truth becomes unspeakable. In each case, what dies first is not the body, it is the capacity to see and believe. The Red Bull in Beagle's novel is not just a monster. It is despair incarnate. It is the force that drives beauty out of the visible world. And King Haggard? He is not a tyrant in the usual sense. He is hollow. He admits that nothing gives him joy except watching the unicorns, briefly, in captivity. He cannot create beauty. He can only hoard it. Psychologically, Haggard represents what happens when someone has lost access to wonder. They do not destroy beauty out of rage. They imprison it because they are starving for feeling. The novel begins with this extraordinary line.
The unicorn lived in a lilac wood, and she lived all alone.
Immediately after, Beagle writes,
She had been there for many years, and she was very old, though she did not know it.
This matters. The unicorn is not naive. She is ancient. But she is isolated. The crisis begins not with destruction, but with doubt. When she overhears hunters say that unicorns are gone, she does not panic. She reflects,
I am the only unicorn there is.
This is not melodrama. It is an existential awakening. Beauty does not vanish all at once. It becomes unrecognized. That is Beagle's first truth. One of the most devastating lines in the book comes from Molly Grew when she first sees the unicorn.
Where have you been? How dare you? How dare you come to me now, when I am this?
This is not joy. It is grief. Molly's anguish reveals the emotional core of the novel. It is not that beauty never existed, but that it arrives too late, or when we feel unworthy of it. Beagle is not telling us that beauty is obvious. He is telling us it is fragile because our ability to receive it is fragile. Fantasy here is not escapism. It is a psychological revelation. King Haggard says,
I am not a man who can be pleased.
And later, chillingly,
They are mine. I made them mine.
Haggard does not destroy the unicorns. He drives them into the sea so he can watch them. He cannot create beauty. He can only imprison it. This is not a dragon guarding gold. This is despair guarding wonder because it cannot generate its own. Beagle is speaking about a world that consumes beauty without nurturing it. Fantasy here exposes emotional truth. The Red Bull is not just a monster. It is the force that drives magic out of visibility. When the unicorn becomes human, she says,
I can feel this body dying all around me.
She carries mortality inside immortality. And in the end, the unicorn does not return unchanged. She tells Schmendrick,
I am not like the others now. I am no longer what I was.
Beauty survives, but it is altered by experience. Beagle is not promising restoration of innocence. He is promising endurance of essence. America's Song repeats imagery of extinction. The repetition of the word last reinforces the book's central anxiety. What if wonder is almost gone? But the song does not end in despair. It ends in longing, and longing is a form of hope. In reality, a woman might fear aging. In fantasy, a unicorn becomes mortal. In reality, a king might feel empty. In fantasy, he traps magic in the sea. In reality, someone might feel like the last idealist alive. In this fantasy, a unicorn walks alone in a forest. Fantasy is not an escape here. It is amplification. It allows Beagle to say, beauty feels endangered. Wonder feels rare. Hope feels naive. But none of those things are extinct. The unicorn survives. Changed. Wounded. Aware. But present. So instead of saying beauty is not gone in a sentimental way, we can say this more accurately. Beagle argues that beauty becomes invisible before it becomes extinct. And hope lies not in pretending it was never endangered, but in going out to look for it anyway. When I heard a remake of the title song from The Last Unicorn recently, something became clear. The lyrics are not nostalgic. They are prophetic. For example, when the last moon is cast over the last star of morning, the repetition of last is not resignation. It is defiance. The song is asking, what if we are at the edge? What if beauty is almost gone? What if hope feels like myth? And then it answers, not with certainty, but with longing. The unicorn remains, not triumphant, not restored to innocence, but changed. And that is the miracle. One of the most radical things Beagle does in this work is transform the unicorn into a human woman, Lady Amalthea. This is not a disguise. It is a lesson that comes with pain. As Amalthea, she learns fear, love, mortality, regret. She becomes capable of sorrow. And this is where the novel becomes extraordinary. When she regains her unicorn form, she says she is different now. She carries human grief. The unicorn is no longer untouched. She is deepened. This mirrors so many of our works. In the Odyssey, Odysseus returns home not unchanged, but scarred. In Silas Marner, life returns through care and is earned through work. In Flow, meaning is forged through engagement, not comfort. In The Diving Bell and The Butterfly, hope exists inside limitation. Hope is not purity restored. It is innocence transformed into wisdom. Peter S. Beagle was born in 1939. He wrote The Last Unicorn in his 20s, yet the book carries the voice of someone who understands loss and aging. Beagle's life, like that of many artists, was not easy. For years, he struggled with financial instability and later legal battles over the rights to his own work. The irony is painful. The man who wrote about the captivity of beauty experienced a form of captivity himself through contractual exploitation. And yet, he continued writing. Biographically, Beagle has always been fascinated by the persistence of myth, the melancholy of fading worlds, the dignity of endurance. Beagle repeatedly argued in interviews and essays that fantasy allows us to speak emotional and existential truths more directly than realism sometimes can. In interviews about The Last Unicorn, Beagle said variations of, "Fantasy is about the way things are. The fantastic makes visible what is emotionally invisible. The unicorn is not symbolic. She is real within the story, and therefore her loss is real. That truth, in The Last Unicorn, is this. Beauty may be rare. It may be wounded. It may even seem endangered. But it is not gone. We have seen this pattern across our journey. In Don Quixote, imagination survives ridicule. In Frankenstein, tragedy warns us against loveless creation. In Always Coming Home, continuity replaces conquest. In A Wrinkle in Time, love defeats control. But The Last Unicorn adds something uniquely tender. It says that even if you feel like the last good thing in a shrinking world, you are not foolish to believe. You are necessary. The novel ends without full restoration. The unicorn is free, but she remembers being human. And that memory, painful, imperfect, mortal, makes her more, not less. Hope in this work is not that everything goes back to how it was. Hope is that goodness is not extinct. Beauty can return. Love, even if brief, is worth it. And even if you feel like the last of something, you are not alone. That thunderbolt moment with the song was not nostalgia. It was recognition. The book is a prayer. Let there still be beauty. Let there still be wonder. Let there still be a possibility. And the answer the novel gives is quiet but firm. There is. Not untouched. Not eternal in the way we imagined. But real. Sometimes we fear that the world has hardened beyond repair. That kindness is naive. That wonder is childish. That believing in good things is foolish. But Peter S. Beagle dared to suggest something radical. Even if you are the last unicorn, even if you are the last believer, even if beauty feels endangered, it is not foolish to go looking for it, because hope is not denial. Hope is the decision to walk out of the forest and find out. This was not just another episode for me. It arrived at a moment when I was starting to feel like the good had thinned out of the world, like beauty had retreated somewhere beyond the tree line. I found myself ruminating about the future, rehearsing worst-case endings, quietly asking, what if nothing good is coming? What if the best is already behind us? When I heard that remake of The Last Unicorn, it hit me like a thunderbolt. The lyrics felt less like nostalgia and more like a reckoning. They frightened me because they named the fear directly: the last eagle, the last mountain, the last moon. And for a moment, I let myself sit inside that possibility. What if? But then something shifted. I cried. Not out of despair, but out of recognition. At first, I thought the song had told me that beauty was gone. Then, I realized it was reminding me that I still longed for it, that I needed to continue to hope and to pray for it. And longing is not extinction. Longing is proof of life. I put on David Bowie because Bowie always understood how to stand in strangeness without surrendering to it, and slowly my breathing steadied. The world did not change in that hour. The future did not become certain, but something inside me recalibrated. Hope returned not as certainty, but as defiance. Not as a prediction, but as a possibility. And that is enough. Good journey.